Miami Dolphins fans, Finn Nation, we are in the playoffs, man. Pop that champagne. I know Shake Hefner's might be coming back, popping some champagne. Bring out your salty Tuas, even though he might not be playing. We made the playoffs, which is honestly, it's a great feeling because we have another week of Dolphins football ahead of us, which is awesome. And I'm not taking anything away from that. But look, making the playoffs at this point after starting 8-3 was the bare minimum that we could have done. Making the playoffs, anything less than making the playoffs, playing the Jets the last game of the season would be egregious and an egregious failure. So we managed to avoid the egregious failure. We managed to make the playoffs. I think we're going to go up against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo next week. Look, anything can happen. It's a division rival. We can go up against the Bills and see what we can do. We split this regular season series 1-1. Gonna be cold, might be snowy. Bills Nation's gonna be pumped. They ain't playing. They won a Super Bowl this year. We'll see how it goes for us. Some thoughts from the game. Number one, we needed help to get in, but Buffalo took care of business against New England. They did want that 1 seed to at least get them a neutral site for the AFC Championship game should they advance to that stage, and they did do what they had to do to get it. Which resulted in the Patriots losing, which got us into the playoffs. Obviously, if after starting 8-3, you really don't want it to come down to that. We played Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is what he is at this point in his career. Our defense did what they had to do against Joe Flacco, but it wasn't like it was a real test. The Jets do have some playmakers. And let's face it, after the Jets BS game that we had earlier in the year, it is kind of nice to beat the Jets the last game of the season, hand them their losing record, and get into the playoffs just as kind of a revenge game. But for the Skylar Thompson people out there, you have some saying, yeah, Skylar's the best on the roster, Skylar's this, Skylar's that. Skylar did what he had to do to win the game, but he didn't look spectacular. The Miami Dolphins offense, once again, did not look spectacular. Now, the Jets have a very good defense, so I'm not taking anything away from the Jets having a good defense. But this offense continues to struggle down the stretch as they had. The Jets, without a quarterback at the helm, are not a dangerous team. We were home. We won at the end. Sanders finally came through and hit a game-winning field goal, which I got to admit, from that distance, I knew he could do it, but I was a little bit surprised that he did do it. But I'm going to stick to my objectivity, guys, and this could change. Hey, if we go up to Buffalo and we win next week and we make a playoff run, then, we can reassess how the season's gone. At this stage, I don't think that Tua plays. I don't know if he will or not. But the questions about Tua remain for me because he struggled down the stretch. Not only did he get hurt, he also struggled down the stretch. And now we have Skylar Thompson, who hasn't been stellar, or maybe Teddy Bridgewater, who hasn't been stellar, with an offense and a play calling from a coach that hasn't been stellar. Mike McDaniel did finally win a challenge at an opportune time, which was the first one. They had to announce it on TV. It was the first time he won a challenge all season. And I knew he should challenge it because the ball clearly was not caught the same way in other situations. It hit the ground. And I thought he wasn't going to challenge it. Flacco almost beat him to it by snapping it, but he did get the challenge in. We did win the challenge. That was a big challenge. It shifted momentum of the game a little bit. They had to punt the ball at that point. So look, it's always nice to get into the playoffs, but I do think that had we started the season 3-8 and made it to the playoffs, or had this been a true rebuilding year and made it to the playoffs, or had Tua played down the stretch very well and on the strength of his good play gotten us into the playoffs, or had even Skylar Thompson played really well and got us into the playoffs, we might be feeling a little bit different. This kind of feels like we did the bare minimum, absolute bare minimum, to sneak into the playoffs with help. And if we lose next week, I don't think, a lot of the questions we have about this team going forward are going to be alleviated. We're still going to have to discuss them. We're still going to have to go over them. It's nice to get another week of Dolphins football. It's going to be just interesting in general to see how, we game plan, who's healthy, who's not, and just to be in the discussion at the end of the year. But like most of us said at the beginning of the year, just sneaking in wasn't what we were looking for this year. We're looking for a playoff win. So that can happen. It can happen. Am I necessarily predicting it? Not necessarily, but it can happen. And so that's positive. I do think making the playoffs, regardless of how bad we struggle down the stretch, regardless of how bad Mike McDaniel's offense has regressed since midseason, making the playoffs in and of itself probably does, I think, save his job. I would guess that Mike McDaniel is probably safe now going into next year, which I'm fine with. Look, he did what he had to do. He got into the playoffs. He got the team into the playoffs. They hadn't been in a while. He probably deserves to come back, even though there's plenty of questions surrounding him. I think Boyer's still in question, and I still think there's questions at the quarterback position for sure. I don't think Tua did enough down the stretch to prove that he can get it done in the clutch. In fact, he didn't do anything to prove it. Skyler won this last game, but I don't think Skyler did anything spectacular that jumps off the film and tells you, oh my God, Skyler's the guy. I think Tyreek Hill had 2 catches. Waddle, I think, 2 catches. Our running game really came through once again today, and it shows for all of those people complaining about the offensive line and all the problems with the O-line and this and that. They've done a decent job this year. They weren't amazing in pass protection. This is the Jets too, but they did pretty well in run blocking. It got us big chunks of yards. It helped us to move the ball and keep this thing, within reach. And at the end of the game, we were able to convert and win the game. But we won it by a field goal, no touchdowns in this game. I think Skylar Thompson was pretty decent. I think his stat line was somewhere around 20 for 32 or something, 162 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. I don't have it in front of me, so I know that might be a little bit off. But look, all in all, if you're a Dolphins fan, it's nice to be in the playoffs. We don't get there very often. Let's enjoy this week of preparation. Let's get hyped about it. Let's be excited. But let's stay objective here. We still have some issues, still have some questions. And if it doesn't go the way we want in the playoffs, don't be on suicide watch. And I say that in jest. I know it's a very real issue. And if you know anybody who has those issues, I make sure you get them help. And there's plenty of help available. But I just meant that as a joke, though. But don't go crazy if, things don't go the way we want. Like, don't get too high off of this. We snuck in, and we should sneak in. The bare minimum after starting the way we started was to make the playoffs, and we did at least do that. But there's still plenty to talk about, plenty of questions, etc. And we will get to a point where we can have those after the season. But now is not the time, because luckily for us, Fins fans, the season goes on, and we're going to have a game. Once we get the scheduling info and everything else, I'll go on a video and we'll talk about it. Until then, catch us live on LG Shaking the Panel this Wednesday at 7. We will be live. And hit subscribe. If you haven't done so yet, smash the subscribe button. The channel's been growing exponentially. Love all you guys out there, Fury fam. It's been a long, hard-fought season, and we are finally at the apex. We did, in fact, make it through the regular season, and we are going to the playoffs. You got to be at least a little bit happy about that if you're a Miami fan. It's nice to do, just as a fan, just for entertainment. It's nice to get there. There will be plenty to discuss regarding our pros and cons and what we do in the offseason, but we can save that for at least another week and hopefully more. Fins up, subscribe, smash the like button, and I'll talk to all you guys very soon. Let's go, Fins.